One of the most common questions PMI gets, even before this pandemic, was about cleaning of life safety rope and equipment. There's a lot of different ways to clean equipment, a lot of questions revolving around that. And in fact, cleaning is a really big deal pretty much all the time. Think of the stuff that our ropes are used for. They're used for rescue and work at height and the kinds of things that might cause people to get blood or other bodily substances on the rope. And so those kinds of things can raise questions about cleaning. The other thing that has come up in recent years is white nose syndrome. Some years ago, the caving community was impacted by a situation called white nose syndrome, where the bats in the caves were getting very, very ill, and cavers were precluded from going from one cave to another without cleaning their equipment in between. And that was a really big deal for equipment, because even though you might clean your equipment or your clothing and yourself before you go to another cave, how long does that stuff live on your ropes and your other equipment? And then in addition to that, of course, now we have COVID-19 and the impacts of COVID-19. What does it take to clean COVID-19, and what's that going to do to the equipment that you have? So I wanted to address that here in just a quick opportunity to cover some brief concepts regarding cleaning and disinfection. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in or ask, or just give us a call as well. We're happy to take your questions anytime. So there's kind of a two-part question when it comes to cleaning. There's the question of cleaning, which is the removal of dirt and grime from a surface like your rope or your helmet or your harness, your equipment. And then there's the question of disinfecting. And the two are not necessarily one and the same. In general, you should plan to clean your equipment before you try to disinfect it, because the grime and the dirt and the other things that are on your rope and equipment can actually lend themselves to holding the infectious part of what's in your rope. So cleaning your rope and equipment before you try to disinfect it, that's project number one. PMI BOKAT rope washer is made for you to simply attach a hose onto the rope washer, and then you close the rope washer around your rope and turn on the hose and simply run the rope through the rope washer. That scrapes the dirt and grime off of the rope, while at the same time scrubbing it a little bit and running water through it. Another way to wash your rope is to simply throw it in a bucket and agitate it. So a 50-gallon drum, a plastic drum works really, really well for this. Another way to do it is with a front-loading washing machine. If you have a front-loading washing machine, washing your rope is pretty easy. Rope gets tangled up in a top loader, so I definitely wouldn't suggest using a top loader for rope washing. The big thing is not damage to your rope so much as it is damage to your machine, although both can happen. But the fibers of the rope or the rope itself will get tangled around your agitator in a top-loading washing machine. So use that with caution. A front-loader washing machine holds quite a bit of rope. I've never really tested to see what the maximum capacity is of life safety rope, but if you have a super long rope, you can always go to a laundromat and use one of the industrial machines to do heavy ropes. But if you just have a standard size, couple 100-foot rope, using a front-loading washing machine works really well. Just put the rope into the machine fairly loosely stacked. You want to be fairly careful about putting it in. Doesn't need to not be tangled up, because it's really going to be tangled up by the time it comes out. So putting the rope in the machine, just pretty straightforward. Closing the machine, and then preferably use either a tap temperature or cold, or at the very most warm temperature for your wash. If you want to use soap, which you probably do, you'll want to use something relatively gentle, like Ivory Snow works well. Most delicate wash type detergents work okay. What you want to avoid is the really harsh detergents, because they will scrub the good stuff off of your rope. So you want to avoid that. PMI Rope Soap is a soap that's actually specifically designed for rope, and it's what I most highly recommend, whether you're washing by hand or in a machine. So any of those options are good. And then at the end of your wash, if you want to, at the final cycle, you can put a little bit of downy fabric softener in the machine to help lubricate the fibers of your rope. Not absolutely necessary, but you will notice a performance difference when you're done. In the end, do not dry your rope with a dryer, but hang it dry in a cool place and out of the direct sunlight. Once you have your rope washed and clean, then you can disinfect it at that point. You don't have to dry it before you disinfect it. Now, the different ways of disinfecting rope for COVID-19, for white nose syndrome, for bloodborne pathogens, they all have different requirements for what kills the infectious disease or the infectious substance. I can't tell you that. That's kind of not my thing. So you have to decide what's going to kill the pathogen that's on your rope or material, and then I'll do my best to tell you whether or not that's going to damage the rope or equipment that you're washing it with. Now there's kind of three things that are going to affect the impact that something or the effect that something has on your rope. The substance on the rope matters in terms of the concentration of that substance, the temperature at which that substance is applied, and the duration for which that substance is exposed to your equipment. So first, the concentration. The concentration that we have tested, the concentrations that we have tested, have to date been more focused on the bloodborne pathogen recommendations. Now, NFPA and OSHA recommend a bleach concentration of 1 part bleach to 9 parts water for cleaning bloodborne pathogens off of things. And so we have done that testing and putting that in a bucket with lukewarm water for up to about 10 minutes, then thoroughly rinsing the rope, letting it dry, and then pulling it as you would on a tensile tester. We see no appreciable difference in the strength of the rope. Now, that's doing it once. What I can't tell you is what it does if you do that 3 times, 5 times, 50 times. What I do know and what I can tell you is that any substance that you put on your rope is going to impact your rope. It is going to change the performance of your rope in some way. And the more you do it, the more it's going to change it. So I wouldn't recommend doing this weekly. I wouldn't recommend doing it on a regular basis. If you're that worried about it, replace the product. That's the best thing I can tell you. But the things that they say kill COVID-19, or one of the big recommendations for COVID-19, is 5 tablespoons of bleach for a gallon of water. Now that concentration is much, much lower than the bloodborne pathogen recommendations. So given that, my assumption would be that the impact or the effect on the rope would be much less than with the testing that we've already done. That said, we are in the middle of some testing, and our quality assurance department is doing a series of tests with repeated exposure with different concentrations, and just trying to see what the impact and the effect is going to be over time. And then finally, I would just encourage you to exercise good record keeping when you do these inspections, good record keeping when you do your cleanings. Again, we don't necessarily know the long-term effect of repeatedly washing rope with bleach and a bleach solution. My guess is that it's going to have a fairly significant effect over time. So you want to keep records of those washings so that you know if it's been washed once, twice, 10 times, 50 times, and that will help you make your retirement decisions accordingly.